seriously wrong with you, good luck to you. You might wait for months, maybe a year, and possibly you'll be dead by that time. It got so bad over there, and I mentioned about a video before that was put up by, I think it was Channel 4, about how bad the National Health Service had become with its slash and burn policies, where the government was dictating to get more beds open, and so the CEOs of the hospitals got very ingenious and simply put trolleys in the corridors, took off the wheels. Now they were stationary, they called them beds. But they also sent out flyers to all those awaiting surgeries, important surgeries. And they asked them on the flyer questionnaires, when will you be taking your holidays? And of course folk thought, well, they want to know so that they don't send it then, when we're on holiday. Well, the idea was, yes, that's when they would send it, and that's when they did send them to thousands of people who were on holiday at the time. And so they went back to the bottom of the waiting list. That's how they go around all this kind of stuff. These are the games that go on, no kidding, when government's in charge of health. But they did admit that the priority was still going on for vasectomies, abortions, and tubal ligations to do with infertility, because it's a UN mandate that every country's signed onto. However, here's an article here to show you how lucrative it is for the system too, and how they're getting under the EU. Now they're all under this super parliament. They were conned into a super parliament, and they take dictates from that. Now people from all over Europe can go to Britain for their abortions, paid for by the British taxpayer. And this is from the Mail Online. It says, get a free abortion on the National Health Service. Polish women are advised to travel to Britain for treatment. 16th of March 2010. Polish women are being told to come to Britain for free abortions to avoid strict laws at home. They're being urged to take advantage of cheap flights and hotels as part of a poster campaign which features a semi-naked woman with the words, "My choice," written across her stomach. The flyers, which are being distributed by pro-abortion campaigners in Poland, mimic the Mastercraft series of priceless adverts. The Lenders campaign features different scenarios such as a first date or trip to the World Cup with various prices alongside. You get a whole package deal here, and the taxpayer is picking up the tab. Polish women are being told to come to Britain for free abortions to avoid the laws at home. They're being urged to take advantage of the cheap flights, blah, blah, blah. The flyers, which are being distributed by pro-abortion campaigners in Poland, say they distribute, keeps repeating itself, this darn thing. And the Polish ad, the woman has various slogans in her stomachs, translated such as plane ticket to England at special offer, 300 zloty, which is about £70, accommodation 240 zloty, £56, abortion at a public clinic, 0 zloty, so it's paid for by the British taxpayer. Thank you very much. Just keep bending over, and bending over. And it's all done through government and with the approval of governments, as the country supposedly broke. Supposedly broke. And as I say, if you really want something important, forget it. You'll be dead. You'll be dead. Now, cause and effect. Cause and effect. Well, you see, since the 40s and 50s, speeding up through the 60s, with the whole push on to create pre-pubertal sex and then massive teenage sex through the music industry and the movie industry, and promoted from the top down, there was a lot of fallout. But the idea, of course, according to Wells and Huxley and Bertrand Russell, who tried experimental schools along the subject of pre-pubertal sexual intercourse, was to ensure that the children wouldn't bond with any one person. That would put the end to marriage. Remember, that was a priority, an absolute priority. And with the side effects comes the effects. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so people got pregnant. Well, they put all their money into finding the pill, contraception pills, and putting up the money to make sure they got abortions, until the abortions become normal. And apparently, I've heard women actually say that, it's just like getting a wart removed, and that's the value of human life. That's what it sinks down to. And I said, years ago, eventually they'll go for the elderly, and I've read the articles here, even recently, even more of them, where they want to open clinics up for the elderly. If you're just too tired of life, not physically sick, but just too tired of life, you can go to a clinic and get bumped off for free. Well, do you realize where all this goes? this dehumanization of life, to understand what it's all about and where it ends up. Because you see, if you can't respect life and you can't respect each other either. Also, when government wants to kill you off, you'll say, well, why shouldn't they? They've got the right to do it. What are we anyway? You're devaluating yourself as you accept all these things piece by piece by piece. It's psychology. It's understood. For every effect is every reaction is an equal and opposite reaction. And what you hear today, well, really, it's not my fault. That's what you'll hear when a boy or a girl end up in trouble. It's not my fault. Like, that had nothing to do with it. And the government's only too happy through their education to say, yeah, it's true, you had nothing to do with it. So you take all responsibility out of their hands. And who takes on the responsibility? The state does. The state takes responsibility over life and death. Who gets born, who doesn't. Do you understand what that's all about? This is bigger than someone's right to decide. It's putting power into the hands of people who want to euthanize a good portion of the public. There's far bigger consequences to everything that we do than most folk even realize. Remember, the government wanted to take away the community. They used to help each other out and give you government agencies that now become authorities. All that kind of stuff comes when you allow government to take over. The nanny state, they call it. But then the nanny becomes rather nasty in her old age, and she tells you who can be born and who can't be born. But don't you worry, it wasn't your fault. You had nothing to do with it. I'll be back with more on this topic after this break. Hi folks, I am Alan Watt and this is Cutting Through the Matrix. Just talking about the dehumanization of society and how it's planned that way. The whole idea, I remember Julian Huxley said we have to dethrone man from his pedestal where he thinks that he's the most supreme being on the planet, the highest creature in the world. And they'd have to get it through our thick skulls that we were now down to the level of animals. And even below, in fact, according to Maurice Strong. He actually said that we wish we would have the rights of the tree or animals at the Rio Earth Summit meeting. And they're not kidding. But, as I say, you're supposed to keep bowing and bowing to the different cultures. Remember that China, for instance, is the model state for the United Nations to copy for this one child per family policy, which isn't quite true because I've read an article not too long ago where the Chinese government will allow you to pay a slight kind of penalty if you're wealthy enough to have a second child, because they do believe in eugenics. So the wealthier ones must be the most successful, therefore they can have more than one child, and they can afford to pay the little penalties that go along with it. But for the rest, no. Social disapproval says, well, you're taking food away from children to come if you have a second child, so we're going to abort it. And the BBC did a documentary a while back where they showed you, they were buying fetuses outside the back doors of the abortion clinics for food. Because it's a health food, you see. China, they're crazy on health foods. And foods that give them virility. They're fanatical about anything that gives them virility. I can remember years ago a documentary where they showed you about the ivory trade coming out of Africa. And at that time, a lot of rhinoceroses were being destroyed just for the horn, which was scraped into a powder because the Chinese believed it was very potent, you see. And they like to eat their food where it's still jumping around on the table. If you watch the movie or the documentary, the largest Chinese restaurant in the world, you'll see how they prepare the food and the fish are still mouthing away on your plate. And it's the same thing with other animals as well. Different culture, you see. Different culture altogether. But we're supposed to just sit back and say, well, different strokes for different folks. However, it goes worse than that. Remember, China is the model state for the world. But you see, what happens too is a dehumanization process when life becomes so cheap and they do have mandatory abortion. and they do have a history of killing off especially the